Welcome back to another episode of Athlete POV. We're sitting down with ALYSSA USTBY, guard, UNC basketball. Happy to have her on. Excited to hear what she has to say. What's going on, ALYSSA?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Of course. So now, the first thing my team and I, we put together this sheet to like a bunch of different topics and stuff. We found how UNC is really like a good, positive environment. I'm getting to know. Tell me about it.
Yeah, being a part of just being an athlete, a student athlete at UNC, there's a great environment here where we all support each other. You know, us athletes, we go to each other's sporting games. We go to the study center together where just athletes are doing their work. It's definitely an environment that's healthy and allows you to grow and become the best version of yourself academically and as an athlete.
Absolutely. And when you say like the best version of yourself, obviously some sort of success has happened. You were named to an all-ACC team. What does that recognition feel like to have?
Yeah, that recognition was amazing. When I came out of high school, I didn't get a lot of recognition from like the McDonald's All-American or the Jordan brand, so I was kind of flying under the radar, I felt like. So being able to get that recognition, although a second team, that's still a great honor for me to receive. It was just a great moment because of how much work I've been putting in throughout the years, and it's really cool to get some head nods from the coaches.
Right.
But it definitely doesn't change that chip on my shoulder that I've had coming in to UNC as someone who wasn't ranked very high.
Right, and you say not ranked very high, but 3-time All-State in high school, right? So how does one manage to be on an All-State team 3 times?
Yeah, so in high school, I was in a pretty small conference. I went to a really small high school, and so I was the best player at my high school my senior year and in the conference. But it was hard to compare to other conferences, so I didn't really get as much recognition because she just had a small school. Of course, she would get All-State 3 times. So I definitely made those accomplishments, gave them some more credibility as I went on and continued to prove myself.
Right. Now, digging a little bit deeper into your backstory, tell me about Taylor Conan and how you guys played for the same AAU team and then both at UNC.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, when she was in high school, she was the big name. Taylor Coonan, she was all over the newspaper, all over the news, just night after night, putting on big performances. And as someone who was just getting into high school, she was someone I looked up to. And to have her to be from my own state, only like 40 minutes down the road, was pretty bizarre to me. So she's definitely somebody that I looked up to and tried to model my game after. And I joined the same AAU program as her because of that reason. And when she went to North Carolina, I was like, wow, like a girl from Minnesota can do that too. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then once I was given the opportunity to go on UNC, when I got offered by my head coach, Courtney Banghart, it was just a no-brainer. It was pretty surreal how all of that kind of panned out.
So you think her and like Taylor herself really influenced your decision to go on to UNC?
Absolutely. Just hearing all the great experiences Taylor had and all the connections she made in this just Carolina family, it was something that I couldn't turn down.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's something that's a solid reason to a deciding factor for school. Did you have other interests from other schools in your recruiting process?
Yeah. So I also was getting recruited pretty heavily by the University of Minnesota. So I had the opportunity to be a hometown hero. And before I made my decision, everybody already assumed it would be Minnesota, just because the fact it was close to home. I'd have my family and my friends really close, but I didn't really feel the connection with that coach and those players and just that school in general, because it's like I've been there like hundreds of times. My brothers all went to that school. As awesome as that would have been, I was really just eager to get out of the state and go explore something new and have new experiences and meet people that I'm not already familiar with.
Right. I feel like taking a step maybe outside of your comfort zone can be sometimes a good thing, And if you're around the same people, around the same area, it can get, stagnant and you become comfortable and then no really growth happens, I feel, as like for yourself,
Yeah, you're exactly right. Coming out to North Carolina, I faced a lot of challenges with like moving all my stuff out here to go to school and not having a car and just having to navigate all that stuff and not really having my parents be like, oh, Mom, I forgot this. Like, could you bring me this? So definitely a big step towards adulthood and my independence, which is something that has allowed my character to grow pretty fast.
Right. So now, also in high school, 3-sport athlete. Tell me about how that maybe benefited you now at the college level.
Yeah, being a 3-sport athlete is where I credit my athleticism and my ability to stay healthy, knock on wood. Just because the cross training was great, the mental breaks from basketball to focus on soccer and softball was a really great benefit for me. And I grew up with 3 older brothers, and they played various sports as well. So I wanted to be like them. So that's why I played softball and I played soccer. And so yeah, that's definitely translated immensely to the college game.
Right. So now at UNC now, you're a sophomore, correct?
Yes.
Take me through a day in your life, because I know in season and out of season is different, but now specifically, what does the recovery process look like during the season and after the season, like now?
Yeah, so during the season, on a typical practice day and during the school year, I'll wake up around like 7:30 and go to my 8 a.m. class in the business school, and then I have 2 classes right after that. So it's like kind of grab and go breakfast, grab and go lunch, and then after I grab my lunch, then I'll head over to go to practice. Practice is usually only about like 2 hours, but then we also have like an hour of film and an hour of weightlifting. And so that takes you about to like roughly like 5 or 6 o'clock, give or take. And then you go get dinner. And then I'll stop by like the study center and finish my homework and get back to my room about 8:30 p.m. So it's definitely like typically like a 12-hour like packed day of different things. And what makes all that craziness worth it is my teammates. Just because we're all going through the same thing, we're all supporting each other, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So it definitely makes those busy days worth it. Right.
So now talk a little bit about UNC's like player development, because obviously about being together all the time. How do you think? What do you think is the biggest factor for like the coaches to like really develop their players as they move on in the years of being at UNC?
Yeah, I think our coaching staff does a great job recruiting highly motivated, really athletic, and smart basketball players. And so when you get the best 14 basketball players you can find from all around the country and you put them in one gym, the competitiveness is through the roof. And we're playing one-on-one, 2v2. We're racing each other. We're trying to outlift each other, do more weight than each other. And so that really has brought the best out of each and every one of us. And I could see in many scenarios it'd be pretty toxic because you're trying to beat out the other person. But that's where recruiting the right people becomes really important, because we're all supporting each other while trying to challenge each other to be better.
Right, because when you have the best player from each, say, district or every state that you bring into one place, obviously some competitive energy is there. That's just the nature of being like the best and being used to being the best. So now, and then when you said bringing the people of, say, high character to UNC, right? That's probably what coaches look for, and so it's not like really like an ego thing where it's like you're trying to be the best, but you're also trying to make everyone the better at the same time, because now you're coming together as a team.
Yeah, exactly. And our coach always says that she's really recruiting on potential. She's like, I want you to be a great person and care for your teammates more than I want you to be like a flashy scorer or just like be trying to carry your team on your back. Because as she told me, she's like, Alyssa, you're a great athlete, but I can teach you how to play great basketball. And that's what she's done with a lot of us. She just takes really good people, and she has the support staff around her that are able to teach us how to have a more efficient shot, how to make more free throws, how to just do things and kind of more of that strategic part of the game.
Right. So now going back to what you said like a little bit earlier, 8 a.m. classes. Why? Do you get to pick those? I mean, personally, I'm in college too. I have an 8:30. It's not the funnest. Like, what's the backstory behind that?
No, 8 a.m.s or any time around 8 a.m. is not fun whatsoever. But because of our schedule, and we need 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. blocked off for all of our athletics, we really have a small window to fit our classes in. And especially when you're trying to get all your like prereqs done for whichever major you're trying to get into, and I'm trying to get into the business school, so I have a lot of those early classes over there. So it's definitely out of my control, unfortunately. So you just kind of have to suck it up.
Right. Yeah. I'm sensing how you just gotta fit stuff in around being an athlete. So I guess you gotta pass. For me, I don't know why I picked an 8:30. I think it was because I was trying. I think I was trying to get all my classes done on one day on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I guess it's just part of the whole schedule and ritual and routines of, being a student athlete. Just one more thing you gotta deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now with being a business major, right? How important do you think it is to really not only focus on athletics, of course, but also make sure you're set up well academically? Because obviously, our scholarship, right? On scholarship athlete, not a walk on. Yeah. So obviously, being on scholarship, it helps financially pay for tuition. But how important is being making sure all your academic stuff goes as planned?
Yeah, I think as a student at UNC, I feel really spoiled because I have a great academic advisor that has mapped out all my classes for me in order to finish in the amount of years I want to finish my degree and go to the school I want to. And we have a lot of tutors. So if you are struggling in a class or you just want a tutor to help you study for a test, they're very available in the student athlete study center. And you can walk into a math tutor, you can just go ask them a question on your homework, or you can send your paper to the student athlete peer review. They'll review your paper. And there's just so many resources at Carolina specifically that it's kind of hard not to do well because you have so many people supporting you. But it also comes down to the athlete and whether they are willing to ask questions and ask for help.
Right. That's definitely so important, but let's take a 180 here. Going over now to the men's side, UNC basketball Duke Final Four. What are your thoughts about that?
It's incredible. Watching the men's team's growth throughout this season has just been, I don't even know how to describe it. It's I feel like they struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season. They had so many great pieces, but they just couldn't fit them together for a few string of games. But they figured it out at the right time, and they earned that spot in the Final Four. And our school is going crazy already. We're all so excited playing Duke for, I think it's the first time ever.
Right. Yes, in the tournament history.
Yeah. I'm very surprised that that's the case because of how powerful those programs have been for so many years. We figured that they'd come across each other at one point, but yeah, so that's going to be amazing. I wish I could go to New Orleans for that, but I have class.
I was just about to ask. I've seen those lines at the facilities of Duke and North Carolina to get tickets, for the student sections. Ridiculous. I saw hours upon hours, just all day events of one person waiting in line for a group of 6 people at all times or something like that. Have you ever had some crazy story where you waited online for a ticket to a crazy game?
I actually never waited in line because fortunately enough, the men's team would give us all tickets to their game because we give them tickets to ours as well.
Right,
so we get to sit in a nice spot and support our brother sport.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's definitely very special. Another perk of being at Carolina.
Right. Yeah. And let's continue on this. Well, not exactly on this. On the lighter side, we see all of your Instagram. I always post some new shoes and stuff like that. What's some of your favorite shoes? I'm probably gonna guess the UNC version, all the colorways of Jordans. But what would you think is your favorite?
I would say the 11 lows are my favorite ones so far, just because they're white, so they go with everything. So they kind of make every outfit look good. But also our player edition UNC 6s are by far the coolest pair I've ever gotten. And it's really interesting to see that when I post about a shoe I got or something, I'll get so many DMs on Instagram for people offering me money for them. But it's actually illegal to sell your shoes while you're a current student athlete, so I'd have to wait to graduate. Yeah. So that's
why you plan on doing that?
I think I might sell a few, but I also want to keep some for my kids in the future. So I feel like that'd be kind of a cool thing to be yeah, this is what I got when I was in college. But I would definitely consider selling them. I don't know if I would, but I would consider it.
Hey, I mean, player edition UNC colorway shoes, when with, Jordan being from North Carolina, definitely value there. So now, going on that, have you guys ever met Michael Jordan? Has he ever been to the campus where you've been around him?
I've been So I have not been around him personally, nor have I talked to him personally, but when Roy Williams, the former head coach for the UNC men's team,
Right.
Retired, he had his last game in the Dean Dome. Michael Jordan and a lot of the other superstars from that team came. So Michael Jordan was there, so we were in the same building, but I didn't get to talk to him. He was, and he was in high demand from all the fans in there. So,
hey, that's pretty cool. Regardless, yeah. So now tell me about this. You guys took a trip to the Bahamas, for I'm pretty sure a tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. Tell me about that experience. What was it like traveling with your team to such a faraway location, a tropical location?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we went to the Bimini, Bahamas over Thanksgiving break. So all of our classmates were leaving to go home or to go on vacation, and we were
You're off there on a plane with your teammates to the beach.
And we're packing up our bags and our basketball shoes to go to the Bahamas. It was a very, very bumpy plane ride. A lot of us were feeling very nauseous on the plane.
How long was the ride?
Well, we flew to Florida first, and then we flew over there. So it was a couple hours, but it wasn't bad at all. And when we got to Bimini, it was such a small island where you could see the water on like all levels. I think the island was only about like 7 miles long, and there was one hotel on the island and one restaurant. So you can imagine how small that was. But when we arrived there was all these Bimini schoolgirls that were like singing a Bimini song, like welcoming us to their island, which is very special to get a glimpse at a different culture. And then we played 2 games there. We won them both, and we played in a middle school gym.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was one of the smallest gyms that I've ever played in. And even back in my early playing basketball days, that was still one of the smallest gyms I played in. But Bimini and the people there were great hosts, and we had a great time. We were climbing up trees, knocking down coconuts, and going to the beach. So it was a great time to spend with my teammates and be out of the country. It was a really cool experience.
How does it work with like the whole team? You have to have a passport to leave, right? How does that work? Like, do people set that up if you didn't have one already? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so as you're coming in for your first year, you have like a set of requirements, and one of them is you have to have a passport. And if you don't, you can't come and play. So it's very my teammates and I were very adamant about getting our passports before we came to campus our freshman year. So we kind of had them all set, but we did have one of our teammates lose her passport prior to leaving, so we're all freaking out trying to find it. So that was a little adrenaline for us before we left.
Yeah, so go on another aspect now. Going on to maybe NIL and how that's now a big thing in college basketball and all college sports really. Tell me about NIL Fanbox and any other NIL adventures you might have had.
Yeah, so the NIL Fanbox was a really cool deal that we got for our team as a whole. And so this group called like Brand R Group signed our entire basketball team, and just one afternoon we went and sat in the conference room and we signed different cards for about like 2.5 hours. We signed like over 1,000 things.
Wow.
Our hands were killing us, but it was totally worth it. As soon as we walked out of there, we got a check for $2,500, and we get commission from the individual sales that we make on our individual boxes. And just having that opportunity to get paid for your name, image, and likeness has been something I couldn't even imagine would be possible during my career here. So I've just been very grateful to have this opportunity, and for people and companies to reach out to me and be like, hey, can you sponsor this, or would you like to join our team? So I think that's a really cool experience, and I wish that the college players before me could experience that as well. Missed out, and I've just been really fortunate.
Right, so now maybe just like on the technical side here, you don't have to maybe say this in full, but how much do you think you've made throughout NIL in total?
I would say not more than probably around like $4,000 or $5,000,
that's not nothing.
Which is huge compared to what you're able to get prior, which was $0. So definitely
a benefit that's benefiting all college athletes in all sports, whether it be football, baseball, basketball, bowling, whatever it might be. If your name and likeness is like relevant, to have like a demand for like some sort of merchandise? Like you said, you signed over 1,000 pieces of probably memorabilia or cards. That's it's pretty crazy, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So now, tell me about on Twitter we saw sometimes how you're like assisting in some kids' practices for the younger generation. Tell me how important that is to you to give back to a community.
Yeah, so after, like, back to Taylor Coonan, so after seeing her impact on me, even though it was completely indirectly, that inspired me to be a direct impact on the girls in my community. And so my junior year of high school, I started my own basketball camp. It was called ALYSSA USTBY Rising Stars Elite Camp. And I had 30 plus girls ages like 9 to 12, and we had a day camp for 3 hours, and I just talked about what it was like to be an athlete, like being recruited to one of the top schools in the nation.
This was your junior year? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was the junior year of high school.
Oh wow! So junior year of high school, you were already getting like recognition from colleges and offers to junior year.
Yeah, junior year I got a lot of my offers because you play AAU junior.
Right.
Play AAU all the way up through your junior year, like the summer before senior year. So that's really like the last opportunity to get offers, and that's when I got all my offers. So, yeah, so they came better late than never.
Right. Go on.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to just make these personal connections with girls that I saw myself in, and I think it was really cool to give back. And I also donated all the profits of my camp to the Ronald McDonald House in Rochester, Minnesota, which is my hometown. And so that's something I really hold dear to my heart. And so to speak on the practices that I've helped out on, I've contacted like all the high school coaches. I'm like, hey, if any of you need help or you like a guest coach for a practice, let me know. I'm totally available. And I email them this like when I go home for a week or two. Just to see if anybody needs any help and if there's any way I can make myself useful. Because especially as I get older, I'm starting to see that me playing the sport, it's like much bigger than myself.
Right.
And so giving back has been something that I've really taken some pride in.
Absolutely, and it's crazy to see like what you can do and how you can affect so many lives once you've established some sort of image. Is the camp, is it like an every year thing you guys do?
I'm going to make an every year thing now. I didn't do it last year, still with some like code restrictions, and as I was transitioning into college my freshman year, and then so there's been a little logistic issues like a couple past years, but I'm ready and I'll most likely have one this summer.
All right, we got a couple of quicker questions here. Give me your favorite Netflix show that you've ever watched.
I would probably say, probably On My Block.
Okay, yeah, it's a solid one. Give me the best thing you've ever cooked.
I don't cook a lot, but I made a really good like chicken Alfredo with homemade sauce and cooked the chicken myself, so I was pretty proud.
Sticking with food, if you could go out to dinner with two people, who are you going with? Where are you going? What are you guys ordering?
Okay, I would go with Roy Williams and Michael Jordan, and we would go to Al's Burger Shack in Chapel Hill. It's a local burger restaurant that are like the owners are big Carolina fans. The place is just decked out in Carolina stuff, and we'd order a double stack burger with an egg and have chocolate shakes.
Okay, there you go. Chocolate shakes, no vanilla.
Yeah, chocolate shakes all the way.
Same. Chocolate's my favorite, along with cookies and cream, but chocolate stands alone. The only reason why cookies and cream is good is because of cookies.
Yes, I love cookies and cream as well.
Nice. All right, tell me about your piano skills.
Yeah, I played the piano since I started in 4th grade, and I only took lessons because my neighbor was offering them, and my mom thought it would be a cool gesture to be like, hey, let's go take piano lessons from our neighbor. And so I was like, okay. And the more I started playing piano, the more I liked it because I loved doing hard things, and learning how to play the piano was something that was really frustrating at times.
Challenge.
It was a challenge. It was took a lot of commitment to try to learn how to play, and then I played piano all the way up through middle school, and like stopped my freshman year of high school because I got so busy with other sports and was missing my lessons so many times. but just my muscle memory is hung on to like the pieces that I would play for competitions. And so whenever there's a piano around, I'll just sit down and start playing. And so many people are really impressed, which I'm like, oh, it's just a thing I do.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If people are like, what? You can play the piano? I'm like, yeah.
Wow. That's, not every athlete has that ability, you know, piano instrument. But now, tell me about another skill you have, juggling. And how has that been implemented into some UNC hype videos throughout the year?
Right. So juggling and simultaneously rip sticking
Right.
has
Yes.
has been something that it was kind of like a little fun thing I picked up during quarantine when like the main part of COVID was
Right. You're
kind
home.
of around.
Might as well do something.
Yes, exactly. So I was just doing that around my driveway. My brother's like, wait, let me record it. And I was like, okay. So then I was doing it. I was like, oh, I'll do it with basketballs. And I was like, oh, okay, might as well like try to make it in the basketball hoop. First try, got it. Then I posted it, and it went semi-viral on Twitter.
Yep.
So, yeah, just something I picked up.
All right, cool. We had a couple more here. So if you had any advice to anybody, maybe going through a tough time, what would you say to them, and how would you go about approaching that?
Is this in a basketball sense, or is this in a life in general?
More in like maybe a mental health sense. If an athlete's struggling with something, they're going through something.
I would definitely, my advice would be to ask for help. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing, because at least for me, it was hard to admit, like when I was going through mental health struggles in my earlier college career, just adapting to a new environment and being away from home brought a lot of challenges. And it took me a long time to ask for help because I was like, oh, I don't need it. So I think admitting it to myself was what my personal struggles were. But so for anybody else looking for advice, I would just say to ask for help, reach out to anybody that you trust, and just to know that you're not alone.
Absolutely. It's super important, I think, for athletes especially to speak out about mental health struggles because it doesn't get touched on enough. You have the stereotype of being some strong figure and with no feelings, and it just doesn't get touched on enough. So we always appreciate our athletes, speaking on this because it's super important.
Yeah, exactly.
Last but not least, final question. Who are some of your role models? Who has shaped ALYSSA into the strong woman you are today?
I would say all three of my older brothers. Just being the youngest in the family and being a girl with three brothers who love to play sports and be a little rough and fight and all that, I really looked up to them and kind of the grit that they had and the commitment they had to their sports and academics. And I really modeled my life out from characteristics of each of them. Like my oldest brother was just like constantly trying new things. So that's what inspired me to play more sports. I was like, yeah, I can do it too. Then my next brother was really academic driven. And I was like, oh, I want to be academic driven too. So whenever I'd study, I'd go to study in his room with him or be around him. And then my youngest brother just had like an insane work ethic in the weight room. And so I'd just hang around him for a little bit and we'd do some weights. So yeah. So I was really fortunate to have three older brothers to model and kind of pave the way for me in all aspects of life and how to grow in those areas.
Yeah, so taking the best of both worlds, or all worlds in this case. Yeah, wow, so it's pretty cool. Not everyone has, three younger brothers or three brothers at all, So I'm sure that's, benefited you greatly as well in your career that's, not even over yet. So it's only can get better. All right, we want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time taking this half hour to chop it up with us. I feel like this is definitely going to be an episode a lot of people relate with just because of how fluently it went, two, everything that you're really one of the most interesting athletes I think I've talked to on this podcast. So
that's awesome.
pat yourself on the back for that. But that's about it. You have anything else you want to add? Shout out?
Shout out to my Minnesota people. If you're from Minnesota, shout out.
All right. Thank you, man. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
All right.